If you're an intermediate guitarist, you've probably noticed that when you try and solo over chord changes, your hand kind of jumps all up and down the fretboard. It feels like you're kind of guessing what notes to play, and it feels a little disconnected from the music, almost like you're always one step behind of what's actually going on. Well, today I'm going to show you a professional technique I've learned over a decade of playing live music and teaching hundreds of lessons helping guitarists to understand the fretboard and applying music on the fretboard so that there's not all these missing spaces in their playing. The first thing is really just basic scale knowledge, right? I'm not going to spend 40 minutes going over every single scale with you because that information exists everywhere, but as just like a thought exercise, right? You might know your minor pentatonic box, you might know a little bit up and down from that, but like if you don't actually know your basic scales all the way across the fretboard, you're never going to be able to move all the way across the whole fretboard fluidly, right? It's just not possible. Like if you want to play like something like just smoothly going up the neck, it's almost impossible if you don't actually know what you're shooting for as far as a scale. Like if you don't know the scale, you might go up the neck, you might start going up, and when you get up here, I remember I used to have this a lot in my playing when I could kind of get up here, but then I felt like once I got up past this like pentatonic box, if I wanted to go up from there, it was like I didn't know where to go, right? And there's no way to beat around the bush here. At the end of the day, that was because I didn't know the scales. Like I knew this pentatonic box, and I didn't know what was above or below it. So when I went above or below it, it was like I felt like I wanted to slide up, right? And I was just like. Sometimes it worked, right? I'd slide up, land right on a good note, or sometimes I would be like, just kind of going for it, you know? And guessing, you know, fucking around and finding out is not the worst thing to do. Like, sometimes you will actually learn things from doing that, but it's helpful to actually take the time to learn your scales all around the fretboard. And if you want a resource to do that, I do have a free community link down below that has all of the scales across the fretboard in there totally for free, because it's very valuable to know, but that's not what this video is about. This video isn't about taking the time to learn all the scales. The video is about how we're going to actually use them. So when we get our scales down, it's important to not have them just separate, right? But to actually start connecting them together. So as you learn more and more shapes, like let's use this as an example. We're going to use this A minor pentatonic box and just the major scale below it. So I'll walk over those really quickly. We have our A minor pentatonic is going to be 5th fret on the low E, then the 7th fret. Sorry, 5th fret on the low E, then the 8th fret. Then we're going to have 5th fret and 7th fret on the A. On the D, 5, 7, G, 5, 7, B, 5, 8, E, 5, 8. You most likely knew that already. Now C major right below it. So our C major scale is going to be 3rd fret on the A, 5th on the A, and then 2 on the D, 3, 5, 2 on the G, 4, 5, 3 on the B, 5, 6, and then 3 on the E, 5, and then you can extend it with the same, that's our pentatonic scale, adding this 7th fret on the E. So the idea here for connecting our scales is just playing them back to back. So a good way to do this would be to play 2 strings and then move up, play the 2 strings, same 2 strings. So I'm on the A string and then I'm just moving up and playing the pentatonic scale. And it's a great way to put them together, because part of moving around the fretboard is having all of these scale shapes connected, right? Like you can go spend 700 hours learning all of your scales, or however long it would take you to get them down, but at the end of the day, if you can't tie them together, what's the point? So you have to forcibly put them together. And you can do this with any of your scales. I'm not giving you this as necessarily a specific exercise to follow, but a way to go about working on your scales in a different angles so you can look at them in a different way. By the way, if you want to work directly with me to be able to write and improvise across the entire fretboard, I have a video link in the top of the description of this video that explains what that will look like in depth, so check that out, and if you click with it, we'll make it happen. So this next part we're going to go a little more in depth on, and this is the idea of learning your chords all the way across the neck with a mix of triads and caged, or just going full on one or the other, but dissecting what you're playing. So if you don't know, the cage system is basically taking the open chord shapes, right? Like our cage stands for C, A, G, E, D, and playing them anywhere on the fretboard. So like C, A, G, E, D. And you can do that absolutely anywhere. C, A, G, E, D. That was a little rough, but you get the idea. So understanding that, you can take the same chord. So let's take our E chord and try and find all of the shapes we can use for this. So the way we do this is just finding all of the E's on the fretboard. So we have our open E string here, right? And then we have our E on the 12th fret of the E. We have an E on the 7th fret of the A. We have an E on the 9th fret, or sorry, 9th fret. I was playing the wrong fret. 9th fret of the G. Right? We have an E on the 2nd fret of the D. We have an E on the 12th fret of the high E. And we have an E on the 5th fret of the B. So all of these shapes, right, they have the root note on the bottom. So if we can take those notes, we can start to find the chords. So we know our open E, obviously, right? If you don't know your open E chord, this video and this channel might not be for you, and that's okay. And then let's go to our E on the 12th fret. Well, this is where we would find our G shape. Like if you think about your open G chord shape, that exists right here too. And I would say that this G chord is definitely not one I use often as like an actual chord because it's a little bit clunky. But in terms of like improvising, knowing where that is very helpful. So that would be the 12th fret on the low E, the 11th fret on the A, 9 on the D, G, and B, and then 12 on the high E. And similarly, these three notes on the D, G, and B string would be in our A shape with our root on the 7th fret of the A string. A little stutter there. And that same root also has the C shape down below it. So now we have our C shape cage. Let's try and find all of them. We got our C shape, we have our A shape, we have our G shape, we have our E shape. So the only one we're missing is our D shape. Well, how do we find that? Well, we know the D shape is on the top 4 strings here, so we have to find our E on the D string. Like we said, that's on the 2nd fret. So just like that, we have K, A, G, C, A, G, E, D, 5 E chords. We got C shape, A shape, G shape, E shape, D shape. And what's important with these is we understand how the pieces actually fit together, because I actually think the cage system is often limiting for guitar players because they go to learn it and they're like, sick, I learned all the chord shapes, let's freaking go. And they kind of just stop there. But the cage system is more of a visualization tool than an actual learning tool. Like, it's a great way to visualize the fretboard, to know there's, more ways to play an E chord. But at the end of the day, what more have you learned about the E chord just by learning that? Kind of nothing, right? So what I like to do is actually break down the intervals inside of those chords. So our E shape here would be our root, our 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. So let's go around in caged order, going through all the intervals, and just as a refresher, the intervals come from literally counting up the scale. So we took E major and went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. That's how we're getting these numbers. We're only using the 1, 3, and the 5 from the scale because that's how we build major chords. So if we're to start on the C chord on this 7th fret of the A string, in order we would have 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. And then if we went to our A chord, in order we would have 1, 5, 1, 3, 5. A lot of the guitar chords don't actually follow the 1, 3, 5 order because Guitar is a bit of a silly, goofy instrument, you could say. So you see we have the 1-5, kind of like a power chord on the bottom, and then 1-3-5 like a triad on the top. And if we go to our G shape here, we have 1-3-5, 1-3-1 at the top. And then if we go to our A shape, or E shape, I mean, which we kind of started with, we'd have 1-5, 1-3-5, 1, which is very similar to this A shape, having the 1-5 on the bottom and then the 1-3-5, and then we should have another 1 on the top. And then lastly, our D shape, we have kind of the same thing again. We have the 1-5 on the bottom and then 1-3. And the reason why it's so important to know those intervals is because if we want to take them and make them minor chords, all we have to do is drop the third down a half step. So if you know where all of the thirds are, right, we can take our G shape. We know it's 1-3-5, 1-3, 1. We just have to take all the thirds. This would be a really silly one to play as like an actual chord, but it would be... I don't even think that's possible to do with your hands as a chord, but it's a great way to visualize it, taking those threes and bringing them down. And then we have our C shape. This is a great one to play as a minor chord. It's kind of a stretch and a lot of players don't use it. But like our E minor shape, for example, would be 7 on the A, and then 5 on the D, 4 on the G, and 5 on the B. You can't really get that high E string in there as a chord, but you totally can as an arpeggio. It would be the 3rd fret on the high E. So I'm not going to sit here and go over all of these with you. I think it's important that you take the time to do it yourself, because at the end of the day, like, having somebody tell you something is valuable. It really is. I mean, you know that if you're watching this video, but it's even more valuable to take the knowledge that you learned from somebody telling you something and apply it to the guitar in a way where you're almost figuring it out yourself, right? Like, it's kind of like, I gave you the pieces to the puzzle, now you have to build the puzzle yourself. So I could sit here and make an hour-long video, you know, explaining all the intervals to every chord on the guitar, but if you watched that whole thing, you probably wouldn't learn that much. Like, at the end of the day, you probably take away 2 or 3 things and go like, okay. But if you watch something a little shorter, or something like this where I'm giving you the concepts, and then you actually take them and apply them to your own playing and sit there and do exactly what I'm doing, even if it takes you a while to figure it out. Like, I don't expect you to grab the C chord and go, or C shape and go like, oh, this is clearly 1-3-5, 1-3. Like, nobody expects that on their first try. And if you expect to do that on your first try, you're going to be let down. I think it's important to expect it to be hard and to take time. But if you take the time and let it be hard, you will learn so much more than if I just sit here and yap it all out. But how do we actually use this chord knowledge with our scale knowledge and tie it all together to be able to move around the whole fretboard, like I was saying at the beginning of this video? Well, with our extended scale knowledge of playing the scales together, right? And then taking our chords, like, let's say A minor, for example. If you can get those shapes all around the neck, in a way, your scale knowledge being limited matters a little less. Because when you're sliding up, like if you know there's an A minor right here, not knowing the scale box right here is kind of okay. You're going to be limited as far as what other notes you can play. You're still going to be guessing there. But you can say like, oh, well, we got A minor here, we got A minor here, we got A minor here, we got A minor here. So when you're soloing, like, I hope my phone isn't buzzing. I'm getting a call. Get out of here. So I know this was kind of a quick video, and I know I'm putting a lot of the learning on you, but I actually really do believe that that's the best way to do it. Like, I have other videos where I go into things more in depth, and you can totally check those out. But at the end of the day, I think the most valuable way to learn is maybe not necessarily to teach yourself. I see a big value in having a teacher, and I'm not just saying that because I am a teacher. I'm saying that because there's no better way to learn than having somebody guide you. Like, I have current teachers in my life of a lot of topics, so I really believe in having a teacher. It makes a huge difference. But whether you're teaching yourself or you have a teacher, at the end of the day, it comes down to you to actually put the time in to internalize the material and really learn it. So whether you're teaching yourself or you have a teacher, it's still on you to learn. And if you want to know more about how you can work with me directly, check this video out right here that goes in depth on exactly what that would look like, and if it clicks with you, we will make it happen. I'll see you tomorrow.